So welcome back to our interview number 7, our last and final in the series. And I hope you found this helpful over the last couple of weeks and some tips and techniques to help you get through this self-isolation period. I know there's a few things that have been helpful for me. I've been taking lots of notes and trying to implement some of these techniques. So I'm really pleased that today we have Cynthia Green with us. And Cynthia is a specialist and expert in workplace health and wellness. And I think, Cynthia, you do a variety of things. I think you get called to do everything from planning for your retirement and quitting smoking, all the way through mental health and emotional health and depression and all kinds of things. So welcome to the program. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest. But my first question for you is, so in doing all these sessions, I know you've been incredibly busy lately with this, sometimes doing 2 or 3 of these online sessions a day. What are you finding right now in the midst of COVID-19 are the most requested topics?
Well, it's funny because in some ways, Susan, I feel like I've been preparing for this my entire life. And the things that I have been teaching or presenting that I had to call something else are really what's front and center right now. So mindfulness, resilience, working mobile, working from home, how to set boundaries, how to manage your stress. And I know you've had a lot of really interesting speakers who have talked about those things. But it seems more than ever before, people are being called to practice what it is they already know they need to do. But in their regular everyday lives, we're just too busy or thinking, I'll get around to that tomorrow. And for a lot of us, tomorrow just doesn't come. So resilience.
So can I just ask then, because you bring up a really good point. So so many conversations I have ongoing with people about meditation, mindfulness is what we call it in organizations, isn't it? But let's call it what it is. Meditation and practicing meditation. And I get the same thing all the time. I get, well, I don't have the time. I can't quiet my mind. I have kids. Where am I going to find 20 minutes? So is what I'm hearing you say is that they almost have no excuse now that they do have the 20 minutes or the 10 minutes. So all that information they've been gathering, now's the time to put it into practice. Yeah.
And you bring up a couple of really good points. So I think that over the years, I've had to call this all kinds of other things. I had to call it relaxation techniques. I had to call it living well with stress. And my husband even used to accuse me of being too woo-woo. A term that you and I use quite often. And, I've seen a shift. I've seen a shift coming over perhaps the last 10 years where people are still searching. Okay. And it doesn't matter what it is we're searching for. But I think that it all comes down to the element of, we call it in emotional intelligence, self-awareness.
Right.
In other ways, they call it, in other terms, they call it mindfulness. And mindfulness really is a part of meditation. And I want to insert a funny story. So I was introduced to meditation as a way of dealing with the effects of the chaos that I grew up with in my childhood. And my first introduction to it, I had this image of me walking around wearing long flowing robes with my hands in the Om position and chanting Om. And then I was going to be called to India to help Mother Teresa. And I smile at that because what I've learned is that perhaps the resistance that I come up against, when I'm aware of that, it really is an invitation. It's my spirit that's looking for something as a tool to be able to deal with whatever it is. So mindfulness over the last 10 years has become really popular. Now, the other thing with all of the courses that I've taken and all of the presentations I've done, the best was going into a group of financial advisors and presenting mindfulness to them. You want to talk about resistance. Because they're so left brain, like, give me the facts, give me the science. And it's like being a kindergarten teacher, because everybody comes in tied to their image, and with the brows knitting together and their arms, their shoulders up near their ears. And after just a couple of minutes, it's like being a kindergarten teacher, because you just see. It's like the letting go. It's like a balloon that just the air is suddenly coming out of it. So there are many different types of meditation. Mindfulness is in fact a component of it, but it's just about being aware.
So that's really interesting what you were saying, because I know I've read a couple of reports, not just one, but more than one in different journals, that are suggesting that those people who are kind of, stuck to routine and who like structure and who need the rules and the guidelines, that they're actually suffering equally as much as someone like me who needs people, but they're suffering as well, in that they don't have the usual structure, and this is changing every day, and it's causing increased stress to people who like to know what the future is going to be and need, that sort of sameness all the time. And this is just changing every single day, and nobody has the answers. So do you have any tips or any answers for getting through this period?
Well,
I agree with you about mindfulness as well. Like, I think that, I know I have hobbies. Well, I have one that I engage in that I think for me is, in fact, I know you know what I'm talking about, but that is, in fact, I think not meditation, because I have a meditation practice, but it is mindfulness, in that when I'm, designing, when I'm imagining that fabric and what that's going to look like as a finished dress or jacket, and when I'm touching and I'm working with that fabric and I'm putting that together, I don't know, I think that's mindfulness, is it?
Well, mindfulness in its most simplest form is being where our hands are. I'm sure that some of the other speakers that you've had have talked about being in flow. So when we're in flow, we are really present. Now, the thing about people when they first come to mindfulness or when they first come to meditation, there's this false belief that they have to completely quiet their mind. Okay, I've gone on 5-day meditation retreats, silent retreats, where the first day I arrived, I'm reminded that when we start meditation, it's like boiling lentils. All of the scum rises to the top.
Oh, that's not enough.
But it's true, and you have to wipe it off. But the reality of it is that most people are so busy and so attached to things being, looking, and feeling a certain way, that when they do come into the quiet, the first thing they notice is just how busy their minds are. So when we're talking about different practices, for people that have, say, anxiety disorders, or people that are really struggling with anxiety right now, the thought of sitting and listening to their breath, or of paying attention to their thoughts, is going to cause them a lot of angst. So for those people, I talk about using our imagination, because our imagination is really our ability to image things in. It's what you just talked about when you're creating a new outfit. You imagine it in your mind before you actually bring it into fruition. And this is something that sports people have been doing forever. It's what we learned when we first started public speaking. Rather than focusing on the fear, it's about imaging in you standing there and looking confident, and your mannerisms and what you're going to say. So for some people, the safest type of meditation is what we call visualization, or it's music, using music. And what music does, whether it's chanting, and we all hum, we hear the words to something that we don't remember actually the words, but we remember it, and we hum along when we forget the words, and that's it. It calms us down. So finding a practice that suits your nature. For me, I'm so comfortable in this. I would love nothing better than to go to India when all of this is over and go to an ashram and stay there for a month, because I'm comfortable with my thoughts. I recognize that I'm not my thoughts and my thoughts aren't me. But take my husband, for instance. the thought of, sitting in the quiet for more than 5 minutes causes him angst. However, he's a marathoner. And for him, meditation comes from getting into the flow of running 26.2 miles. Why, I don't know, but anyway, that's another story.
Okay, so what you're actually saying then is that this idea of meditation or mindfulness doesn't have to be the image we have in our heads of sitting cross-legged, with the hands and the chanting Om, that in fact there's different ways of practicing mindfulness, including listening to music.
Exactly. Find one that works for you. And I'm sure your other speakers have talked about how the mind gets accustomed to things. So, we need to keep practicing. And that's the only way we get good at things, is by practicing. But as adults, we don't like to practice because we want to be perfect. I know you talk about the role of perfection in your life. So trying different things. We talk about beginner's mind, coming with the energy or coming with the enthusiasm of learning something new.
So interesting. So I know exactly what you're saying, that I remember when I started meditating, I thought there's no way, I'm never going to be able to do this. And in fact, I remind myself, and I share with other people when it comes up about meditation, that it's why they call it a meditation practice, not a meditation perfect, and it's something that I know in the beginning I had to keep reminding myself, because it was almost like a muscle that I was trying to strengthen, or a habit that I was trying to develop. Because I know in the beginning I was like 3 minutes and it felt like an hour, there was 3 minutes, and then it was 5 minutes, and then, it was a little bit longer. And I mean, I'm fine now. I like nothing more than to sit for my 20 minutes, but that wasn't something that I could do at the beginning. I mean, it really took me some practice. So I guess I'm asking if you can let people off the hook a little bit and let them know it's okay to not be perfect in this.
Well, you just reminded me of a story. I'm not sure if you remember this, but when you and I were doing night school classes, and we were asked to
No, not night school, how to be a real person training.
Yes, okay, busted. How to be normal or real person training. And we were asked to do a paper on how we managed our stress. And I did mine on meditation and spending time in nature. And you did yours on retail therapy and chopping vegetables.
Okay, chopping vegetables is mindfulness. Okay.
Exactly. And I do want to mention to all of you watching this, Sue got a higher mark than I did, and I've always held it against her, okay? But there is that element of it. I have a girlfriend who admitted to me the other day that she chops vegetables for so many of her family members. She's actually able to talk herself into thinking that she's eating them. But when she sat down and looked at it, she hadn't put a vegetable into her mouth in weeks. So it's about being aware. Are my actions and my words matching? The first meditation story I was introduced to was one, it was so simple. It was about a woman standing at the stove stirring her oatmeal in the morning. Wow. And she realized that she had just traveled the whole world and was everywhere, but there with that oatmeal. And that caused me to really be present. Now, I want to share a story with you. And for those of you that have children, or those of you that are, with your loved ones for the first time for extended periods of time. Our eldest granddaughter, Victoria, who is now 18, when she was 7 years old, she sat at my kitchen table and she looked at me with her big brown eyes. And she would come and visit for 2 weeks at a time. And she looked at me and she said, "You know what, Gami? When I'm at home, I'm just a kid and nobody listens to me. But when I'm here, I feel special." Well, my first instinct, Sue, was I wanted to kidnap her and never send her home to her parents.
Yeah.
No, but my next memory, my next remembrance was all of the times that I was too busy to be present for the person sitting right in front of me.
Mm.
You know, when my husband would come home from his golf game and he would want to tell me about his almost hole in one, and I'd be too focused on something else. Of the times when my staff, when I was managing in a corporate environment, would come to me with a problem and I'd be too focused on something else. And I think one of the gifts that meditation or my mindfulness practice has given me is the ability to be present and the ability to listen to people. And especially today when people are struggling so much, we don't have to fix their problems for them. Sometimes we just need to be present and we need to listen. And that's being, tested with technology, certainly. But we've been talking about doing this for 20 years now? And here we are. We finally made time to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So what I just heard you say in that, though, was really interesting. It kind of is going off in a different tangent, but I think what you said was really important about in our regular busy lives. We're so busy all the time, rushing from here to there. We've got work, we've got dry cleaning, we've got errands, we've got so much stuff to do that we're not often able to be present for those that we say are important to us. So I know, and I know you teach this as well, when we talk about time management and values and priorities, people will always say, my family is number one priority. And then when you ask them to put time against what they say are their priorities, it's often backwards. And the thing at the top, the family, gets the least amount of time put towards it. So I heard you in that say that this is also a brilliant time to be present for people in your life, because it's like the world has hit a giant pause button. And, there's no reason when we're all at home 24 hours a day with our loved ones why we can't almost quiet our mind and practice being present and listening to our children, our spouse, our grandchildren, if they're living with us. Yeah.
And, you bring up a couple of points. So the one that I'll share a story. That's my style. I like sharing stories because I think people can really relate to stories. And I was sitting at a golf tournament that my husband was putting on, and I was sitting with a group of fellows. And it's really hard to explain to people what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, people don't always get it. So I said, well, I do presentations. And I said, I was doing one the other day, and I told the group that, of all of the addictions out there, and we're all addicted to something. It doesn't matter who it is. We all, in Buddhism, they call them attachments. But we're all addicted to something. And when you look at workaholism, it is one of the most devastating isms out there, because what happens is our family watches us treat our clients like family, and yet we treat our family like clients. Mm. And, workaholism is the one ism where, it's ego fulfilling, that healthy ego gets built up. And especially when we're passionate about what we do, especially when we love our job. And I'm lucky enough to be able to help people as you are. But it can be a real slippery slope when, yes, those values that we say are so important, when we tell our kids, you're the most important thing in my life, and yet we're canceling going to their dance recital, or we're on our phone continuously, or that computer screen is calling us. So there's, it's again about our values. And I think that now is a really important time to look at our values and ask ourselves, am I living according to them? Recently I did a new certification, and I was asked to do a values assessment. And the two that came through continuously were spirituality and tranquility. And then the facilitator said to me, so Cynthia, how much time do you spend a day on each of those? And I saw you flinch. I had the same reaction, because when I looked at it, I had been caught up. I was doing 4 webinars, getting up at midnight and doing webinars over in Hong Kong, 6 o'clock the next morning in the UK. I was dead dog tired. You know, I was being miserable with my husband, who was doing the best he could to take care of me. And I had to really stop and look at that. But if your tendency is to beat yourself up, then you can get into that negative spin cycle, I call it, and that, oh, I'm just not good at this either. So it's about, you know, right sizing it and saying, okay, the pause button has been pushed. I'm pushing the reset button right now. How much time am I spending on this? You know, so now the first 45 minutes I get up in the morning is devoted, and that I block that time off. And, you know, the only one that gets to come into that time is when I say it's okay. So I have complete control over that time, is what I'm saying. So, you know, the biggest gift that we give to ourselves is being present for ourselves.
Yeah. So what are then, from all of the things that you've been teaching lately and the people that you've been interacting with, I'm going to take it, and I'm on board with this. I mean, you know, I've been said I have a meditation practice. To me, it would be like heart medicine. I don't actually need heart medicine, but it's like heart medicine to me, you know, like it's so important for me to do this. So definitely find some form of meditation or mindfulness that you can engage in. We can't engage in retail therapy right now. It's okay, I'm creating my own downstairs in my design studio. But find some form of meditation, whether that's chopping vegetables, listening to music, dancing, a hobby that you have. And I think you also said about being present for those that you love, the family members. What else can we do to look after our emotional health right now?
You know, Sue, the one thing that has given me so much comfort is spending time in nature. You know, nature is my religion. You know, that's the philosophy that I keep on coming back to. So one of the Navajo rituals is spending time walking on uneven ground every day. You know, and for some people, pardon me?
I said, okay, that's interesting. Uneven ground.
Uneven ground. So when you think of walking on concrete, walking on pavement, okay, there's rigidness to it. And I think we're all feeling rather rigid right now, aren't we? You know, there's a lot of stress that we're taking on in our bodies. So just this practice or this premise of walking on uneven ground. Okay, because the earth, just like everything is a vibration, everything has energy, and we only have so much energy to go around. When we spend time out in nature, we're allowing, whether you want to call it Earth Mother or Mother Earth or whatever it is, to restore our energy. When you're out walking in trees, you know, I love where we live, you know, because in the winter time, everything looks so barren. And then as spring starts to come, and it's also the reminder of the impermanence in life. And no matter what it is that's going on, no matter where we are, it will change. The other lesson that I get from nature is you can even use the different elements, you know, of earth and pathways. And no matter how far down a certain pathway we are, you know, we can always turn around, or we can just stop and look at the lessons that nature is trying to present to us. The other one that I use is the image of standing at the water. You know, whenever I'm presenting this in person, I say to people, how many of you, when you go away on vacation, you watch the sunset, or you make a point to watch the sunrise? And for me, that's a practice that just, you know, to watch and to recognize that that sun going down here is coming up somewhere else. And for those people that are feeling really alone, that are feeling so separated, it's about connecting with everything that's around us. You know, the other one is water. And the tagline that I have on my emails right now is, I'm learning to live like a river flows, open to its own unfolding. You know, so can we live more in the flow? Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and no one knows And, you know, in times of uncertainty, we want to hang on to certainty. So the only
Yeah.
certainty that we have is in this moment.
Yeah. Great irony for me that in the certain, I know, you know where I'm going, in the certainty of every day being the same, I find that very disconcerting. So I much prefer to have the chaos and the unknown. But I guess I'm kind of doing that as well. You know, I wake up and my only way of getting through this is one day at a time. I can't think about next week or next month because it just causes me anxiety, you know, to think that this is still going to continue. But I can do one day. So that's been working for me. And I think that's what you're talking about with the river. Did I get that right? Yeah.
And the other part of it, Sue, is it doesn't mean that we stop planning for the future. You know, you and I are planners. You know, the most anxiety comes for both of us is when we have nothing in our calendars.
Yeah.
You know, we used to talk a lot about life has three different answers for us. One is yes, one is no, and the other one is wait. And I think we're all in wait right now. And the reality is that emotionally, we only have so much energy to go around. So that whole concept of living a day at a time or living right in this moment is really, we only have enough energy for today. Now, so what are the things that we're doing to nurture ourselves? What are the things that fill us up right now? For me, it's nature. For you, it's sewing. Like I even heard myself the other day saying, geez, I wish I had a sewing machine. And then my next thought was, you wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. So this speaks to self-awareness. Okay, putting any more pressure on us right now, like I'm doing all kinds of courses on Coursera for the things that I'm interested in. Because our ability to hold on to information and to retain it, mindfulness can really help with that because it does help us to focus in on this moment. So using this time, and not to get the grades or not to, you know, have another course under my belt, but just things that fill me up, things that interest me, because my brain feels like it's going dead after I've watched the 10th episode of something on Netflix.
Well, it's actually why I decided to do this series. As you know, it fills me up to do this. It's talking about my favorite topics. I mean, it's a departure from my usual business topics, but, you know, talking about my favorite topics and resilience and stress and rewiring your brain and how to be happy and meditation and spiritual principles. I mean, it does fill me up to do this, and hopefully fills the audience up as well with some techniques and some feeling like, if nothing else, they're not alone, because we're all going through this, even though it feels very alone. Yeah.
So if you'll indulge me for just a minute, let's practice.
Absolutely.
Let's practice, because that's how we get good at anything. So I used to think that I had to have the perfect outfit to be able to meditate.
Oh no, come on.
Or that, you know, I had to have, you know, the perfect environment. And meditation really is practical, or mindfulness is practical, because we can do it anywhere. So I'm going to ask you to just, and I'm going to do this as well, to just close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And the reason why we do that is because we're constantly scanning our environment and taking in information. So just closing our eyes and bringing our awareness to our breath. And perhaps you want to focus on where the breath is coming in at the nostrils, where you feel at the top of your lungs or your lungs expanding, or perhaps as your belly rises and falls. And just sit with that. And perhaps you'll notice that your mind is starting to wander, or your mind wants to control or judge your breathing. Just notice it and let it go. And if your mind is really busy, you may want to repeat in on the in-breath and out on the out-breath. And now when you bring your gentle awareness to your body and your breath, you may notice that your in-breath is just a little bit deeper and your out-breath is just a little bit slower. And repeating deep on the in-breath and slow on the out-breath. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. And how do you feel?
Calmer.
And that's the importance of using words, or we call them mantras. You know, they're reminders for us. And that in, out, deep, slow. If you've ever watched a baby or you've watched a puppy, or I know you like cats. You know, I remember when I used to look after your cats for you and watch their, you know, their stomachs rise and fall. A lot of us are breathing really shallow because we're in heightened states of stress. So finding anchors, finding triggers, you know, when you hear the whoosh or the bing or the ding of your phone, use that as an anchor for you to breathe a little bit deeper. You know, for me, when I hear sirens, you know, that's always an opportunity for me to, you know, wish whoever it is that's being affected by that, you know, wish them well. You know, so again, there are many different types of mindfulness, many different forms of meditation. Find one that suits you and practice it when you're walking. You know, for those of you that don't know Sue and I, we've known each other for a long time, but she'll text me when we get someplace and she'll say, yeah, well, you walk a lot slower than I do, so I'm sure I'll catch up to you really quick. But mindful walking is something that we can do, you know, and using our breath as an anchor. So how many steps, slow steps that you can take to match your in-breath and your out-breath? You think of how we're, you know, walking to meetings and we're so caught up. Another story for you. I was away at a Mindfulness for Educators retreat at Brock University, and there were 1,000 of us there, all practicing mindfulness. And I was sitting out on the front bench and I was really caught up in my head. And I was debating whether I should go to Starbucks to get a latte because I hadn't had a latte in days. And a woman came walking in, and in some ways she reminded me of you, Sue, because she had the, you know, the corporate suit on and her lanyard was swinging and she had the briefcase. And she stopped and she stood in front of me and she said, what's going on here? And I just smiled and I said, it's a Mindfulness for Educators retreat. And she said, boy, it feels different.
Wow.
So for those of you that don't see the changes in you or don't feel the changes in you, you know, there's a lot of talk right now about contagion. And we know that emotions are contagious. Anxiety is contagious. So is calmness.
And for anyone who thinks they can't meditate, they've just done it for 5 minutes. So there they go. Brilliant way to finish off this series. And I can't thank you enough for agreeing to be on. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has enjoyed the series. And as Cynthia says, you know, you don't have to sit cross-legged with your hands like this, wearing a specific outfit to meditate. you can chop vegetables and find equal peace. And I love the idea about walking and timing your breath to that. So I think I'll try that on my walk tomorrow. So thank you, my friends, so much. I really appreciate you being here with us. And thank you to everybody who's been watching this. And I hope you found it helpful. And maybe we'll see you again with another series if this goes on any longer. Thank you.